Welcome, and thank you for stepping into my world of fear. Here, the nights are longer than the days, and the shadows, they never sleep. Every story you'll hear is laced with whispers you can't unhear, and sights you can't forget. If you dare, stay with me till the end, but beware. Once you've entered, there is no going back. Subscribe, like, and join me in the darkness, because here, your fear is just the beginning. I picked up a load of carbon pallets out of Nebraska. It was a light run, easy miles. Nothing special. Just headed down through Oklahoma, on the back end of a 3-day circuit. Weather was clean, sky overcast but holding, and I was making good time. About 30 miles past McAllister, I saw a hand-painted sign off the shoulder, white wood, red brushstrokes, fresh coffee, 3 miles, station ahead. Looked homemade. No logos, no brand, but something about it hit right. I'd been driving 7 hours straight, and I figured I'd earned a 10-minute stop. I followed the arrow off a narrow split in the road. No shoulder, no markings, just a curve that bled into the tree line like it had always been there. The road narrowed quick. Potholes, gravel shoulders, forest height on both sides like it didn't want me there. No cell signal. Radio cut to static, but the signs kept coming. Same brushstroke lettering. Open 24 hours. Coffee, fuel, rest. There were too many to be random. Someone meant for drivers to find this place. Eventually I saw it. A single-story gas station half-sunk into a gravel lot, with one dim pump island and an old neon open sign flickering in the window. Looked like something from the 70s. Wood panel siding, plastic flag banner over the roof, half of it shredded by wind. But the lights were on. I pulled up slow, shut off the engine. Pump was rusted to hell, but the digital readout blinked awake when I picked up the handle. No card reader, just analog numbers that clicked when I started fueling, like it was alive and barely hanging on. Inside, the bell above the door rang when I stepped in. No one behind the counter. No music. No sound but the soft buzz of the lights and a cooler humming in the back. Place was full of things I hadn't seen in years. Glass soda bottles, tin lunch boxes, plastic-wrapped pies with expiration dates from 2008. There was a pot of coffee on a burner behind the register. Fresh. Still steaming. Just sitting there. A man came out from a door near the ice chest. Pale. Mid-60s maybe. Wore a thin blue shirt tucked into tan slacks like he hadn't changed in days. His name tag just said Glenn. He didn't speak right away. Just looked at me like I'd walked into his living room uninvited. I nodded toward the coffee and said, "That fresh?" He didn't answer. Just turned around, picked up a ceramic mug, nodded to go cup, and poured it full. Brought it to me without blinking. "No charge," he said. Voice dry like he hadn't used it much lately. I took it. Sipped. Strong, bitter, hot. Real coffee. I asked how long the place had been open. He said, "Always been here." I asked how often trucks came through. He said, "Just yours today." And something in the way he said that made my hand go cold. I looked out the window. My rig was still there. Pump still ticking. But something about it looked off. The angle. The shape of the shadows. Like the world outside the glass was being reflected through the wrong filter. I told Glenn I needed to use the restroom. He pointed down a hallway I hadn't noticed. It stretched far too long for a building that small. Fluorescent lights above. Some flickering. Some dead. I passed a row of closed doors. Storage. Maybe. But everyone had a silver number plaque on it like a motel. I stopped at room 5. The door was open just a crack. Inside was a narrow bed with white sheets. Perfectly made. And a man sitting on the edge of it. Pale skin. Black eyes. Wearing the exact same clothes I had on. He didn't move. Just turned his head as I walked by and smiled without teeth. I didn't use the restroom. I turned around. Fast. Walked straight back toward the front. But the hallway had changed. The exit door was gone. Replaced by another wooden frame. Another door with a number. Room 6. I opened it. Same bed. Same layout. Only this time, The man was standing. Same face. Same body. It was me. But older. Hair gone white. Eyes sunken. And he whispered, "You left me here." I slammed the door and ran. The hallway folded in on itself. I don't know how long I ran. Time was gone. Space didn't mean anything. Door after door after door. Each one showing a different version of me. Younger. Older. Dead. Crying. Laughing. One with his mouth sewn shut. Holding out a map drawn in blood with my route circled in red. I remember falling. Tripping over something that wasn't there. Then I was outside. On the ground. Gravel cutting my palms. My truck door wide open. Engine running. Pump handle still in the tank. Only now the numbers read $0. I climbed in and drove like hell. Didn't care what road I hit. Just needed to put distance between me and that station. No signs. No exits. Just trees until I broke into daylight near Atoka. Pulled into the first real truck stop. I saw and asked the cashier if she knew anything about a backwards station 20 miles north with hand-painted signs. She looked at me like I was crazy. Said nothing's been up that way in years. Said there was a place back in '96 that burned down during a lightning storm, took half the woods with it. I asked her what it was called. She said, people used to call it Glenn's. I checked my phone. Still no service. Tried the GPS. Nothing. My coffee mug was gone. Replaced by a ceramic cup with the name Glenn printed in red along the rim. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, just for a second, I swear I saw someone else in the sleeper berth. Just a shape. Leaning forward. With my face. I was running empty across Utah after a last-minute drop in Provo, deadheading west toward Reno to reset, when I saw a red light strobing in the distance, low and pulsing like a warning flare. No traffic. No turn-offs. Just salt flats stretching for miles and the sun dying slow behind me. I thought maybe it was construction or a signal tower, but as I got closer, I saw it was coming from a small radio station off the side of the highway, squatting alone in the dust like it had been dropped there by mistake. Single antenna, blinking red, and a sign that just read, WXR83 with the tagline, Local Voices, True Signals. I didn't plan to stop. Wasn't tired, wasn't curious. But my cab radio, switched off, suddenly came alive with soft static and a voice saying, Driver 4480, we've been waiting. That's my route ID. Not my truck number. Not my call sign. My route ID, something only dispatch uses. The voice wasn't threatening. Just calm. Flat. Like a news anchor reading a list of casualties. Then it said, pull in when safe. So I did. There was no parking lot. No lights. Just loose gravel and a single flood lamp glowing amber over a wooden door. I cut the engine. Wind was dead still. Air warm like breath. The moment I stepped out, the door opened. A woman stood there in a black dress with a headset around her neck. She smiled like she knew me. Said, he's ready for your segment. I didn't ask who. I didn't ask why. I just followed her inside. The building was cold. Radio equipment lining the walls. Dust on every console. Old reel-to-reel decks spinning even though nothing was playing. The soundproof booth had a chair, a MIC, and a single bulb swinging overhead. She motioned for me to sit, then closed the door. Red light went on. MIC crackled. And a man's voice, not hers, came through the headset. Tell us about mile marker 51. I hadn't thought about that in years. Not since the accident. Not since the woman in the rain, the screaming, the impact, the silence. I said nothing. The voice repeated itself. Tell us what really happened. And suddenly I wasn't in the booth. I was behind the wheel again. Rain hammering the windshield. Wipers broken. Headlights flashing off a figure in the road soaked to the bone. Waving her arms like she needed help. Then the scene froze. Like a pause tape. And I was standing outside my own truck watching the moment play back in real time. Only now the figure wasn't a stranger. It was me. Soaked, waving, mouth open in a silent scream. Then the truck hit him. Me. and everything went black. I came back in the booth. Heart racing, hand shaking, headset hissing with dead air. The woman opened the door again and said, "Segment's over." I asked what the hell that was, how they got into my head, and she said, "You told the truth. That's all we ask." I staggered out into the hallway, tried to find the exit. Every door I opened led to another room, full of static, walls of speakers, humming with faint whispers. One door led to a studio where dozens of people were seated in rows, each with headsets, each whispering into dead mics. Their eyes were blank, skin dry and grey like paper. One looked up. His mouth moved, and I heard my own voice echo from a speaker overhead. A story I told 6 years ago in a truck stop about seeing a man vanish between mile markers with no shadow, no sound. Something I never told anyone else. Something I only thought about once and buried. I ran. No more exploring. No questions. I shoved through the door, burst back into the open air, and found my rig covered in dust like it had been parked for years. Windows fogged, tires soft. I climbed in, turned the key, and it roared like nothing had happened. But the dashboard clock was blinking 88:88, and my phone was dead. When I finally got signal again, I was 40 miles past where I thought I was. No memory of getting back on the road. Gas tank still full. One voicemail on my phone with no number attached. Just static and a voice whispering, "Driver 4480. Thank you for your honesty." Next day I checked the map. There's no station out there. No structure. No WXR83 listed in any database. But when I played back the cab audio from that night, there was a 4-minute gap in the middle of the file. Then my own voice, recorded clear as day, saying words I never said. "My name is Kian. I was there. I remember the crash. I remember the scream. I remember everything." And in the background of that recording was the faint echo of applause. I was running the I-17 southbound through Arizona. Late haul, empty trailer, just me and the road, when the sky lit up yellow like someone had fired a flare into the clouds. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't natural. I slowed down, checked my mirrors, and that's when I saw it, a green road sign I'd never noticed before. Clean, freshly bolted, even though I'd driven that stretch 100 times. White letters read, "Exit 34. Welcome to Pine Gate. There is no exit. 34. Not on that highway. Not on any official map. But the ramp looked paved, fresh lines. Reflectors blinking like they were guiding me in. And the weirdest part? My GPS rerouted automatically. No input, no touch. As if whatever was down there had been added to the map in real time. I took it. I don't know why. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the way my hands turned the wheel before I told them to. The road wound down into a narrow canyon. Tall rock faces on either side. And after about 10 minutes I came out into a town that shouldn't have existed. Old storefronts. Neon signs. A gas station. A diner. A motel with a cracked red vacancy light. The place looked frozen in the 1970s. No people. No traffic, but everything powered on. The diner had a handwritten board in the window. Tier Y the PIE. Stay the night. I parked across the street. My clock said 10:42 p.m. but the sky overhead looked like pre-dawn. Soft purple with no stars. I walked up to the diner. Door opened before I touched it. Bell chimed once. Inside was clean. Too clean. Not a speck of dust. Not a single chair out of place. A woman stood behind the counter with her hands folded like she'd been waiting hours just to greet me. Blonde hair. Old-fashioned waitress uniform. Name tag read Malene. She didn't ask what I wanted. Just said, "You're the last one tonight." Then she pointed to a booth by the window. Third from the back, already set with a slice of pie, a glass of milk, and a folded note card. The card read, "Eat slow. Listen carefully." I sat down. I didn't argue. I don't know why. The pie tasted like cinnamon and winter and memories I didn't recognize. The milk was warm. And as soon as I took the second bite, the jukebox kicked on behind me, playing a song I knew for a fact hadn't been recorded yet. A woman's voice singing about headlights in the fog and names carved into ice. Then the booth across from me wasn't empty anymore. It was me. Or something wearing my face. Same scars, same flannel, same twitch in the left eye. He smiled, but not with kindness. He leaned forward and said, "You've been drifting for a while. They want you back en route." I asked who. He said nothing, just reached into his coat and pulled out a clipboard with a single page, a new manifest, a route number I'd never seen before, and a destination, South Gate, final entry. I said I was done with contracts. He said, "That's not your choice anymore. You crossed into dispatch control territory. You're on the ledger now." And then he slid the clipboard over and said, "Sign or stay." I looked at the door. It wasn't there anymore. Just more booths. More windows. Every one of them showing a different version of the outside. In one, it was daylight with snow. In another, fire. In another, complete black. The only way out was the paper in front of me. So I signed. Not because I agreed, but because I knew I wasn't walking out unless I did. The other me smiled again, stood up, and said, "Next time you stop, check your review first." Then he vanished like fog on glass. The woman behind the counter rang a bell and said, "Your route's ready." I blinked, and I was back in my cab. Engine running. Radio playing some warbled AM frequency I couldn't tune out. Outside, Pine Gate was gone. Just highway. No exits. No signs. My GPS was blank. My route sheet on the dash was new. Typed in clean font. Destination, Southgate. Arrival unconfirmed. The diner coffee cup was still in my hand. Still warm. Still marked with the name Marlene in faded red cursive. I made it to the next way station outside Kingman. Officer scanned my plates, paused, then said, "We flagged your rig last week. It was reported missing 3 days ago. Found idling near an abandoned gas station off Route 6. No driver inside." I told him I'd never been off Route 6. He looked at me like I was lying, handed back my license, and said, "Clock's ticking. Kian, don't miss your final drop." And when I climbed back in the truck, the cab smelled like pie. I was somewhere between Fort Stockton and El Pozo. Nothing around but scrub and sky, when I started noticing the same vehicle in my mirror every time I checked. Not a truck. Not a car. Just a shape, low, black, no headlights. Keeping perfect distance. Not gaining, not falling back. I tapped the brakes once, just to see if it reacted. It did. Matched me exactly. I sped up to 65. It did too. 70. Still there. It was like being followed by a shadow that never touched the light. And the worst part? No matter how flat and open the road was, I couldn't make out a driver. I took the next exit. Random little road that looped through some old wind farm. Dead turbines spinning slow in the breeze. No signs, no services. Just a lot of dust. I pulled off beside a concrete utility shed, killed the engine, and waited. Nothing came. Nothing passed. I stepped out, walked back to the shoulder, looked both ways, completely alone. No sound but the wind. I climbed back in, flipped on the dome light, and froze. The passenger door was unlocked. I never leave that door unlocked. I never even use it. And sitting on the passenger seat was a photo, old, Polaroid style, curling at the edges. It showed me, standing beside my truck. Only the truck wasn't parked on any road I recognized. It was surrounded by pine trees, snow on the ground, and a wooden sign above the cab that read, "Welcome back." There's no snow in Texas. Not in July. Not where I was. But the timestamp in the bottom corner said 5:41 a.m., which was 5 minutes ahead of the current time on my dash. I turned the key. Truck started. Radio kicked on by itself. No music. Just a man's voice, low and crackling. "Stay on your path. Kian. Or someone else will." I threw it in gear and gunned it back onto the highway. But I didn't see another car for over an hour. And when I finally hit a truck stop outside Van Horn, I ran straight inside, showed the clerk the photo, asked if they recognized where it might have been taken. Kid looked at it for a long time, then said, We don't get pine like that out here. But that sign, that's from the old Ridgepoint campground up in Idaho. Burned down in the 90s. I've never been to Idaho. Not once. I asked how he knew, and he shrugged. Said his uncle used to work for a fire survey crew up that way. Whole place got shut down after a ranger went missing. They said he just walked off trail and never came back. Left his truck running with the door open. Only thing found was his name scratched into the inside of the windshield. Backwards. He laughed a little when he said it, like it was an old ghost story. But I wasn't laughing. I went back to the cab, locked the doors, and checked the windshield. Nothing scratched. Nothing visible. Until I breathed on the glass. Then it showed. Faint. Like condensation caught the imprint of something oily. My name. Backward. Traced by a fingertip. And right below it, the time. 5:41 a.m. Same as the timestamp on the photo. Same as the moment I turned the engine back on. I don't remember what I did for the next few hours. Just that I kept driving, mile after mile, watching the mirror. Waiting for the black shape to return. It never did. But sometimes when I check the dashcam footage, I catch glimpses, just a frame or two, of someone sitting in the passenger seat. Not moving. Just watching the road with their head tilted like they're listening for something I can't hear. I've swapped out the cam 3 times. Still shows up. I mailed that photo to dispatch. No return address. No note. Just sent it to get it out of the cab. Next week, my route changed. No explanation. No more Texas runs. They've got me looped through the northern corridor now. Wyoming. Montana. Idaho. I haven't taken the exit yet. But I've seen the sign. Weathered wood. Painted letters. Ridgepoint. Reopening this summer. I don't stop. I don't slow. But I know the moment's coming when I won't have a choice. And when I get there, I know exactly what's waiting. Me.